All right, fantastic. So welcome to our latest episode of Founder Friday. Katie and Zillah, welcome. Nice to see you here today. Where are you both today?
We're both at different ends of London. I'm in South London and Katie's
the north.
And of course, you have an epic idea that's been to at least 2 demo nights now and got a lot of raving fans across the community. So do you want to tell everybody what is it that you do?
Yeah, well, we've developed some amazing virtual reality experiences that help young people, or anyone indeed, calm down rapidly in 7 minutes and develop coping skills. So it's really fast, it's enjoyable, and it really works.
And it does really work. I've actually seen it in action, although I haven't done the immersion myself, but I have watched many others do it. And
You're too relaxed already, Stuart. We don't want to.
You think this is relaxed? I'm like a duck, right? But it's not just the smile in the moment, it's the smile several hours or even days afterwards, or when they recollect the experience. So tell everybody who's watching this and not met you before, like, how did you guys come up with this, and how are you connected to each other? How did you meet as co-founders?
You can do the Zillah or am I?
I'll start this. So, well, both of us have been working in virtual reality for years, actually. I'd worked for the BBC for 20 years, started in political journalism, did many things, but then ended up working in innovation. And I got really excited by virtual reality's power to change behaviour. And I went on a trip to Stanford for the BBC back in 2014, and Stanford had this amazing big virtual reality lab where they'd done years of psychology experiments. And I did this one particular thing where I flew like Superman around a city. And the idea of the experiment was that by giving people these superpowers, you had to save a child that had been left after a city had been evacuated. And one child had been left. I had to go and find the child. I got too excited about flying to find the child. But they proved in the experiments that people who'd done this, because they felt they'd done something good and they'd had this exhilarating and superhuman experience, that it changed them as people. They became more confident, they became more empathetic, and it was just so exciting. And so we set out at the BBC to really understand how virtual reality, what sort of content we could make. It was really exciting at the beginning of a sort of new medium to understand how you could tell stories and what you could do with this. And eventually I ended up running a full-on virtual reality studio for the BBC. And I met Katie because we wanted to make a Doctor Who VR adventure in virtual reality. And Katie, we asked a number of companies to pitch to do this for us, for select companies, and Katie won the pitch. So we worked together on a Doctor Who adventure that took us to Tribeca. We had to get a TARDIS to New York, which was quite an effort. They don't fly very easily. And we got an Emmy nomination, and that was how we met. I'll get Katie story onwards.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, Doctor Who was just a fantastic project to work on. My background was in video games. I always sort of understood the power of kind of interactive media, and also just that extreme emotional investment people put in different IP. Huge with games. Gaming audiences are particularly hard to please. So are Doctor Who fans, it turns out. And I had left games to go to sort of very early VR studio in 2015, where, similar to sort of Zillah's moment with flying around the room, I did a vertigo experience, and I hate heights. I am no good with heights. And this idea that I was basically arguing with myself over whether something was real or not was like, there is something in this. I went from there to an animation studio where I sort of headed up their innovation and R&D department, and VR was part of my remit. They were very happy to see a VR project for Doctor Who land at our feet. And I think we through that project, we appreciated each other's skill sets from the off. It was very much a sort of divide and conquer between managing BBC stakeholders and a kind of, a studio team keen to get on with things and not willing to wait for the BBC to go through many levels of approvals. Off the back of that, I think it was lockdown, wasn't it? We were wandering around Hampstead Heath wondering what to do next, what was wrong with the VR industry, many things, and trying to think about how we use this technology we'd both obviously fallen in love with to do some good.
Yeah. We were really aware that, I had 3 teenagers at home, was teaching students. We were really aware of the youth mental health crisis and the way it was holding young people back, and the need for new solutions that could help. And there'd been 30 years of amazing research using virtual reality to support people with mental health issues. But we felt that not enough of that had sort of made it out of the lab, and that too often, there were pilots and things that had been started in hospitals, but they all hit brick walls. And we felt that was a lack of understanding of how to make good content, but also sort of an understanding and appetite for understanding how to implement it. And another thing that I'd led at the BBC was a big pilot in public libraries, taking VR out across the country, up and down to over 170 libraries, and making it really easy for librarians to be sent a box with a headset in it and some instructions and some guidance, and get going. And we thought the same could be applied to VR in schools and universities and other places like libraries. So we were bringing not only our understanding of how to make great content to this, and to work in research partnerships with universities, because that's also something we both love, bringing these complex interdisciplinary teams together to solve a problem, but also to understand about how to implement new things. And because both of us have been working in innovation a long time, we know that that implementation takes time. Innovation isn't just one easy thing where you make something and people start using it. You have to really understand user behavior and work with them, and use research to quickly iterate and make something that's really enjoyable and desirable and easy for people to use to get it going.
So you two are obviously incredibly passionate about what you do. I've watched you give your demos and stand up there on stage, and you're both very articulate storytellers and very charismatic in the way that you do it. But I wonder, what are your true superpowers? Like, you guys know each other better than I know you. So Katie, what would you regard as Zillah's superpower? And Zillah, what would you regard as Katie's superpower? And what therefore makes you such a good founding partnership?
I think it's definitely Zillah. Zillah's ability to pull a contact or new member of a network seemingly out of thin air. She genuinely does know everyone ever, or someone who knows someone. And she'd be like, I've just been talking to an amazing person who is exactly the right person to sort of help us, or will be in 6 months' time. So I think that comes from. And also bringing them on board, I think just years of kind of BBC stakeholder management. She was always, I know for Doctor Who, it was this combination of sort of diplomacy and the ability to sort of weave around any obstacle or block and find a way around, and someone who would help. I think that still is definitely one of FaceSpace's superpowers.
It sounds like you're a super connector, Zillah. Is that true? And what is Katie's superpower?
Oh, well, there's many, but I would say, Katie's ability to sort of patiently solve a problem and work out the best way forward to unravel it and move forward. Again, that helped us with Doctor Who, and it helps us with FaceSpace all the time. But also, Katie does the most awesome decks and pictures. That's why that's why we ended up working together.
Got to be selling the strategy, and then upping the budget, which I think is what I did with Doctor Who.
Oh yeah. Budget, wrangling budgets to get the best out of every penny and make sure it goes in the right places. And that requires an immense flexibility. And I think we've realized in the startup world, actually, our understanding of managing budgets, which comes from the sort of flexibility required for really complex productions, is really useful. And we really do know how to budget well and get the most out of our money.
Interesting. Now, I don't know if you've listened to too many of the Founder Friday episodes before, but one of the questions I love to ask is, what defines you as founders and entrepreneurs? And where this all started from was, I have this attribute, which is I'm an only child, and we do put down my entrepreneurial bent to the fact that I am like this, and I don't like other people's rules. I only like my own rules because I kind of grew up with my own rules. And so I end up building companies simply so I can be in a place where the rules are the way that I want them. And it's kind of weird, but when you look back at all the companies I built and stuff, this really is a defining feature for me. It's also why I don't play well with others. I'm a really bad communicator because I internalize all the time. It's all these only child things that I have to kind of compensate for. but it's the very reason that I get annoyed about stuff enough to start a company rather than just allow things to be the status quo. So my question to each of you is, what defines you, and what is making you do at a different age, dare I say it, to some, or to most entrepreneurs that we see come through Demo Night, right? Different age, different experience level, different life experience that's happened for you both. What is the fundamental definition of you both that's making you do this?
Well, if I look back on my career now, it's really obvious to me that all the exciting times and the things I've been drawn to are launching new things and the challenge of that, and getting people really excited about something new and establishing it to the point where it becomes normal, whether it was launching a new program on Radio 4 or launching a new VR studio when nobody knew what VR was for. And for me, the startup is bringing everything together in the ultimate challenge of not only creating an entirely new product that does something very new that's never been done before, but everything that comes with that. And the challenge of that has been incredibly exciting.
So does that mean you're a shiny things person, Zillah? Is that what it is? You chase
No,
the
I'll
shiny things?
I'll stick with them. I like I like the challenge of new things.
Okay.
It really uses my brain in terms of understanding what it will be, what you need. And it's always been very audience focused because I come from broadcasting. So if it was a new program, it was how can we make a program how can we devise a new program that can then be made every week on budget, on time, and go out and delight audiences. And so it's bringing those different things together. But it is about creating a product that audiences will love. That's what I've always tried to do.
So if you created in this case, a program, a show, if you like, that went on the BBC that you loved and that was really well put together and was on budget and on time, but nobody watched, would that be
failure? I didn't always. That's a total failure.
Okay.
Yeah. And as a commissioning editor, which I later was, you're not commissioning for yourself. You're absolutely what the audience might need and enjoy and like. That's the art of it.
Okay, so you like breaking down barriers and making new things interesting. All right, Katie, what about you? What defines you?
I think sort of like my approach to sort of innovation, interestingly, to like both come at sort of like different ways on that sort of like do new things. And similarly, I like the challenge of someone saying, no one's ever done this before. And you're like, well, okay, let's figure out how we do it. But I think the interesting part of that, and I think we've both come from this sort of entrepreneur sort of job where you have to sell that in as an idea. You have to get people to get the buy-in. And so that idea of having a really clear strategy and rationale of really understanding why you're doing it and why it's going to be good and getting people on board is a big part. The other sort of side of that, which I think is sort of this, I think I overuse the word sort of satisfying. When something next to me is sort of satisfying, I'm like, yeah, the argument is there and the creative is there. And this all feels like it's clicking into place, that we know what we're making. I like that bit of it. But I think a lot of that is I have a very contrarian nature. I've been back at my parents' house clearing stuff out. I've just been reading all my old school reports, and this is definitely there at the beginning of, the very independent, don't listen to people. But I get excited when I feel that we are doing something genuinely different. That I look at everyone else and go, actually, I don't want to do what you guys are doing. And I'm really happy in this space where we are off on an angle, because this is really exciting. This means we're doing something new and adding some new value somewhere along the way. And I think between that, it's like having that idea of like, over here is new and exciting, and here is why, the sort of background strategy and rationale for it. That's where I like working.
So would it annoy you to be doing the same thing as other people?
God, yes. I never have. For good or ill. It's been like, I wouldn't recommend it as a career path, but yeah, it would annoy me to be just turning the handle. Yeah.
So let's touch on the subject of age for a moment. I'm not going to ask you your ages, right? But I'm 52, and I'm usually in the minority in most of the events that we hold, right? So that's sort of 20 to 30, come out of university, maybe done a master's. There's a lot of those kind of people circling around doing their first startups or their second startups either. As I mentioned before, you guys have got a bit more life than that's happened already. So how does it that fit? Does doing a startup and going through this process and this kind of mind-bending journey of trying to raise money and get customers and stuff, does that fit with where you're at in life, or is this friction, or actually does it empower you more to have this kind of life experience behind you compared to somebody who's 22 doing this?
Well, I think it's brilliant, because I think a startup has brought together so many bits of the knowledge I've acquired in my I won't say how long my career's been, but long and varied career over different things, and that's why I've got lots of contacts as well, because I've done many things. So yes, I'm also in the fortunate position. I had 3 children who are now all at university and beyond, and so I've got this huge energy and time that I can devote to a startup that would have been much harder when I had 3 young children in my 30s. So it's a great time as far as I'm concerned, and just a perfect time to bring your experience together to do something really challenging.
Yeah.
What's your perspective, Katie?
I don't have the luxury of children having left home yet. Still dealing with that, but it's the same. I mean, I think, yeah, until you sort of step off that existing career path of working for other people, you don't appreciate. I was saying this to someone I used to work with. You don't appreciate quite how much you know. You don't understand that actually. Yes, I have done sales, and I have managed teams, and I have delivered multi-million-pound projects, and I've done, all of these things that you'd never have done earlier in my career. You have the benefit of kind of maybe going in a bit more optimistic and a bit more wide-eyed. But I think when you come a bit older, the other thing is I'm sort of a lot more confident in admitting what I don't know and going off to find someone who can help, which I think when you're younger, you maybe don't even have that sphere of reference to know the difference. You don't automatically go, okay, I need to go and ask someone about this. You might try and, I think it's easier to feel confident about that when you're older.
So we're able to work smarter. We know our limitations as well, and when we need extra help, and are not afraid to ask for it. I guess a third thing is that we know ourselves and what our boundaries are, in terms of when we're dealing with negotiations and stuff. We know what we're comfortable with and what we're not, and that's not something I would have known in my 20s. I mean.
And do you? I mean, what sort of peer response, or from friends and colleagues and stuff, do you get for going on a startup journey? Right.
Well, I've just inspired somebody who was going to try another entrepreneurial activity to go it alone and do it. So I think we're actually starting to inspire a few others, and I'm sure a lot of other people think we're totally mad, don't they, Katie? In terms of the risks, everything involved. I think.
I mean, neither of us came from this world. It has. I think that's been the learning curve. Is the sort of the language, the ecosystem, this sort of startup world, that bubble that exists outside of most people's normal sort of day-to-day work experience. So when you meet most people, I know, just don't really have any sort of sphere of reference of how you even do it. Like, well, there's a lot of admin, but yeah, I think that's the main response. It's like, how are you even doing this? Not sure.
I mean, you definitely throw all the energy in the world at it. It's quite amazing to see you guys on stage and stuff. So I've noticed that you get this kind of raving fan thing going on when when people use this product. They become raving fans. They tell lots of people about it. They smile uncontrollably about the experience. How have you managed to do that?
Well, it was designing a good product, and it's gone through a lot of testing. I think we went to get it to this stage. It was all co-designed with medical and healthcare students at what was then St George's, University of London, and they gave us astonishingly good feedback. I mean, that's one thing we really benefited from. They were very able to articulate and describe when something was working or when it wasn't. So it's gone. That's what I'd say. It's gone through proper design and rigorous design processes to get it where it's at. And we know how to get the best from it when we're dealing with people, and to introduce them. We set them up. We've learned all this through years of exhibiting and taking VR around, of how to make sure they're comfortable, feel safe when they do it as well.
I think the fact we've been making VR so long is part of what makes it do that. Is you know, there's, as Zillah said, there's a lot of kind of mental health VR that stayed in the lab, and you put it on, and I mean, yes, there's some very good medical thinking behind, clinical thinking behind it, but for me, it's like, but does it have to look like a sort of PlayStation 2 game? Because I'm pretty sure it doesn't have to look that way, but obviously it does. They're not animators, they're not creators in any way. They're making a very functional sort of experience, and I think what, you know, my experience is you're asking so much of someone to put a VR headset on, right? You're asking them certainly to put down their phone, probably, you know, not talk to their family for 10 minutes. You might, even for sort of room scale, you might have to move your furniture. You've got, like, this is a huge investment of people's time to put that headset on.
And there's the hair thing as well, right? For some people, putting it on is not. Like, I don't have this issue, like, but like, no, it's like it's a proper barrier to some people putting this on their
so
head,
if someone is going to be, you know, willing to give us 10 minutes of their undivided attention, we have to give them something back that is worth that. And that is, you know, when we were experimenting with early graphics, when we were looking at, you know, tweaks to sort of, you know, the audio experience, every single detail of that has been made to, like, let's not pull anyone out of this lovely world by going, oh, that, you know, it's a little bit of pixelation there or a little bit of lag. We can't do that. We have to make something that people feel is rewarding them for their time and attention.
So it feels like you've set the bar quite high, right, with your expectations.
Really high.
Yeah, and it's a really people-centered approach. Everything is designed around making people feel comfortable, making it easy for them, trying to sort of make the technology melt away, so they just have a beautiful experience. And the sort of conversations they have before and after are really important too.
All right, so this is Founder Friday. This is all about founders and their personalities. So I'm going to have to ask you some of the tricky questions.
Okay.
What is the biggest mistake you've made, and what is the biggest row you've had as co-founders so far? You can answer those in any order, or you can ignore them completely. It's up to you.
I'm trying to think of what the biggest mistake was we've made.
I put an extra digit in a bank transfer once. Fortunately, it was to Katie, because I wasn't understanding that at my age I need to wear glasses to use my phone app, and that was awful, because Katie was on holiday and we had to unravel it, and it was quickly unraveled, but it was
well, it wasn't, because then my bank flagged it as a fraud when I tried to pay it back, and I was
stop giving me too much money.
So I always wear my glasses now if I'm doing a bank.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
And what about the rows? Do you guys row? I mean, you're both creative people, right? With huge amount of passion and energy. I would have thought you would row about something quite regularly.
No, we don't row. We occasionally, I know I've pushed Katie too far on something, or I've been over liberal with some terminology like elevator pitch. I mean, just
like, that's not an elevator pitch.
Occasionally I get told off for that sort of thing, but no, we've really had an exceptional working relationship. I've never actually had a working relationship like this in my entire career, I would say, where we have worked so well together, solved problems together, and supported each other. If there's been other things going on in our lives that required it, tried to make it so that we could make this work. Because there was simply no point with a startup with all the stress and effort unless you can turn it. This was advice for one of my friends gave me early on, turn it into the company you want it to be, because there really isn't, you won't survive otherwise, not at this early stage where there are so many mountains to climb. You have to make it what you want, and that for us was to be supportive.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I know it's probably just a so the idea of like a sort of creative endeavor. Yes, you can feel strongly about things, but the project only works if you move it forward and get over that block pretty quickly. You know, it's not about opinion, it's about how do we achieve the thing that is missing, or get us to that, you know, yes, we can all agree maybe something isn't working or something can be better. How do we solve it without sort of, you know, you don't need to stick your heels in and go, it needs to be X, Y, and Z. There's a whole sort of range of things we can do to try to pull a lever to move things forward.
Amazing. Thank you for answering those. I know that they're not the easiest questions. Look, it's an absolute privilege to know you both, and I'm really glad that we've got to meet each other through the demo night experience and the stuff at City St George's. You know, I really do hold you up. It was one of the reasons we've invited you to Founder Friday, hold you up as role models for people taking startup ideas through, and particularly the way you tell stories on stage and the way you kind of carry those stories into people's mindsets, and then the joy you've given them through using the headset. So thank you so much for everything you've been bringing to demo night into the community. I wonder, as role models in our community, if you could share with the people watching this, what's your best advice for a first-time founder thinking about doing a startup today?
Well, since we're coming from the sort of supporting mental health end, I think we have to say that you do need to find ways to look after yourself. You are going to get lots of knocks and have to pick yourself up after spending months on a grant application that you then don't get, and the, you know, all the frustrations are often the effort you've put into things that just don't come off, but you can't understand whether that's going to happen at the time, and so finding what I sometimes see in younger founders is just running themselves into the ground, actually, with exhaustion, without putting some boundaries in to make sure that they look after themselves, and therefore have better ideas and can work smarter. Because every time we take a little break, we come back with a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And there are times when you think, I can't possibly do this. I took our VR to Glastonbury last week and was extremely stressed before, partly getting all the headsets ready, thinking, can we provide headsets for hours on end in a tent? Is it all going to work? It did, and we got some amazing feedback. But again, it kind of sort of made me rethink, you know, what we're all about, the need for bringing some joy to the world of mental health, so that people actually want to use it and get the pleasure and joy from that. And it was really nurturing and a great experience. And if I'd said, no, I must just focus entirely on fundraising, we can't possibly do that, we would have never got to that position. It's definitely it's reinforced what we're all about.
Yeah, I'd add some advice from a guy I know who was a founder when I started. She did give me 2 pieces. Give me a great accountant. That would be a good contact. Give me a really good accountant to use. But the other thing he said was that you will never get to the bottom of your to-do list. And I think that's the advice. And be comfortable with that, right? You have a finite amount of energy. Your job is always going to be what's a priority today. Tomorrow might, you know, someone might ring up and it might change completely. But I think it's that, yeah, just maybe enjoy some of that flux. But I think there's maybe a sort of feeling around a lot of startup culture and scaling culture where it just becomes a sort of numbers and kind of brute force game. And I think that's maybe what encourages people to sort of work themselves into the ground. But it's not, as Zillah says, it's the stopping and the thinking and reset the priorities and start again tomorrow with a, you know, slightly rejigged to-do list. But always understand that, yeah, the fact that you've written something down it's probably good enough some days, and you can come back to it the next week with a fresh brain.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really pleased to have restarted the Founder Friday series with you guys at the head of it, and appreciate everything you've brought to the community so far. Thank you, and wish you both every success with what's yet to happen with Phase Space, and I'm sure you're going to go on an amazing journey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart.